Thank you, Antonia. It's really wonderful to be here. Penelope Hobhouse has very strong ties. As you've heard, she is still a distinguished counselor to the board here, as was Frank Cabot. She designed the original herb garden here, and some of her structures and shapes remain. And last summer, she worked on the plans for a wonderful public exhibition garden in the greenhouses called Spanish Paradise Gardens of the Alhambra. Now, I know how very much she wanted to be here. She sent this picture. She just couldn't make the trip from her home in England, but she really, really sends her warmest wishes to everybody, and especially Anne and the Cabot family. I will read a few of the excerpts from her wonderful tribute to Frank in this latest issue of Hortus, but please read the entire piece. It's really worth it. And as a reward, right after her piece, is a marvelous piece written by Caroline Burgess about stonecrop, the first in an installment of a series of articles about stonecrop. So it's a very special issue. So this is the excerpt from Penelope Hobhouse's piece in Hortus. In the horticultural world, Frank Cabot seemed like an immortal. Francis Higginson Cabot Jr. was born in Manhattan in 1925 to a patrician family, and his career in investment and venture capital followed a traditional East Coast form. But he had already discovered the joys of serious gardening, perhaps as a relief from his business pressures. His first garden at Stonecrop still reflects a strong botanical slant. But for me, meaning for Penelope Hobhouse, it is his great 20-acre landscape in Canada that shows Frank's and Anne's development of design sense combined with plant knowledge. Frank freely admitted that many of his design features were derivative, but he added new dimensions and personal quirks, new interpretations of the original's meanings. Les Quatre Vents is perhaps the most ambitious private garden constructed since the Second World War. At La Malbaie, precious Himalayan blue poppies and 10-foot-high blue delphiniums compete for space in a beneficial microclimate, where the traditional formality of straight lines, alleys, and conventional borders blend into an inspired natural garden, where design features and plants from other cultures dominate the views, passing into native pastures beyond, where fields of wild echiums finally disappear into dense woodland. As I said, she's pictured behind me with Frank in front of his Chinese bridge, and she goes on in the article to admire it, the Japanese tea house, the famous pigeonnet with its overtones of both Islam and Renaissance Italy, and many impressive features of what she calls a Canadian masterpiece. Quatre Vents is beautifully described by Frank in his book, The Greater Perfection, which is right outside. Penelope also observed that Frank could be a dangerous driver, especially when he had plants on his mind. I think we can all relate to this one. While traveling with him in Greece, she remembers his eyes seemed more fixed on spotting interesting roadside plants than on the zigzagging mountain roads or the frequent herds of approaching goats. She concludes her article beautifully by saying, Frank Cabot will be greatly missed. He was admired and almost worshipped for his public generosity. Together with his wife Anne, he was always loved for kindness and hospitality, especially to new friends. Frank was an intensely charming and lovable man, almost a genius, whatever that means, certainly a life enhancer. Luckily, he has left us not only incredible memories, but also many tangible achievements that will ensure his place in our history and in our hearts. From Penelope Hobhouse.